Before attraction can settle into something stable, a woman is unconsciously asking one question: can this man remain grounded when pressure appears? This is where testing begins. Not because she wants to dominate, manipulate, or cause conflict, but because attraction requires polarity, and polarity requires strength. Strength here does not mean aggression, loudness, or control. It means emotional steadiness, self-direction, and inner certainty. Until that is confirmed, safety cannot exist. A woman's nervous system is highly sensitive to instability. She may, like you, enjoy your presence, even feel chemistry, but if she senses that your emotional state depends on her reactions, words, or approval, something inside her stays alert. Tests emerge naturally at this stage. She might challenge a decision, question your plans, pull back slightly, disagree unexpectedly, or apply subtle pressure to see if you fold. These moments are not random. They are checks for leadership of self. Many men misunderstand this phase. They assume that being kind, agreeable, and accommodating will make a woman feel safe. In reality, excessive compliance does the opposite. When a man instantly adjusts his opinions or boundaries to keep harmony, he communicates fragility. He signals that conflict destabilizes him. That is not safety. Safety is knowing someone can remain calm through friction. Strength is proven in moments of discomfort. When plans change and you don't panic, when she disagrees and you don't rush to explain yourself, when she teases or challenges you and you don't become defensive. These are micro moments, but they carry massive weight. A grounded response tells her this man is not easily shaken. He can handle reality as it is. This is why tests often appear early. Before emotional investment deepens, a woman wants to know whether she will eventually have to emotionally manage you. If she senses that she must walk on eggshells, soothe your insecurities, or regulate your reactions, attraction quietly weakens. Not because she is cruel, but because she instinctively does not want the burden of leadership in a romantic dynamic. True safety is built when strength is consistent. You don't perform confidence, you live it. You don't argue for dominance, you embody direction. When a man knows who he is, what he wants, and where he stands, he doesn't need to prove it. His calm becomes contagious. His certainty allows her to relax. This does not mean suppressing emotion or becoming cold. Strength includes emotional honesty, but without loss of control. You can express disagreement without anger. You can hold boundaries without hostility. You can say no without guilt. These qualities communicate maturity, not rigidity. When strength is present, tests naturally fade. A woman stops pushing when she feels no cracks to exploit, not because she is afraid of you, but because she trusts you. Trust is not built on words. It is built on repeated evidence that pressure does not change who you are. The men who fail this stage often do so unknowingly. They try harder, explain more, give more, thinking effort equals value. But value is perceived through stability. A man who stays centered under stress demonstrates something rare: self-leadership. And self-leadership is the foundation of attraction, respect, and long-term connection. Without strength, safety is impossible. And without safety, attraction cannot last. Another way women test men during dating is through emotional pressure, not to provoke drama, but to observe regulation. Emotional regulation is the quiet backbone of masculine presence. It shows whether a man is led by impulse or by awareness. When emotions rise, does he react or does he respond? That difference decides respect more than any words spoken. These tests often appear subtle: a delayed reply, a change in tone, a moment of withdrawal, a mild criticism disguised as a joke. None of these are accidents. They are emotional stimuli. The purpose is simple: to see whether your internal state remains yours or whether it becomes controlled by her behavior. A man who collapses emotionally under uncertainty communicates neediness without saying a word. A man who stays steady communicates abundance. Modern men are rarely taught this. They are told to be expressive, open, vulnerable without being taught containment. So when emotions rise, they spill. Anxiety shows up as over-texting. Insecurity shows up as explanations. Fear of loss shows up as pressure. Each reaction weakens polarity, not because emotions are wrong, but because lack of control signals dependence. A woman watches how quickly you move when she pulls away. If you rush forward, she learns that distance destabilizes you. If you pause, stay grounded, and continue your life, She learns that your center is not fragile. This does not mean playing games. It means you are not emotionally hijacked by uncertainty. Emotional independence is attractive because it removes pressure from the connection. Another common test appears through disagreement. She may challenge your opinion, values, or decisions, not to win an argument, but to see whether you crumble, explode, or remain composed. A man who becomes defensive shows insecurity. A man who becomes aggressive shows lack of control. A man who calmly states his position and allows disagreement shows strength. That strength builds trust. This is where many men unknowingly emasculate themselves. They confuse emotional expression with emotional dumping. They overshare fears too early. They seek reassurance instead of self-regulation. They ask questions not from curiosity, but from anxiety. Each behavior tells her nervous system that she may eventually have to carry emotional weight for two people. Women are highly attuned to emotional consistency. One calm moment does not matter. Patterns do. If your mood fluctuates based on her availability, attention, or approval, the test continues. She pushes more, pulls more, observes more. Not consciously, but instinctively. Instability invites testing. Stability ends it. The strongest response to emotional testing is not detachment, it is grounded presence. You acknowledge emotions without being ruled by them. You feel attraction without desperation. You feel disappointment without collapse. You enjoy connection without clinging. This balance allows intimacy to deepen without pressure. Importantly, passing emotional tests does not mean suppressing vulnerability forever. It means timing and containment. Vulnerability shared from strength builds closeness. Vulnerability shared from fear creates burden. A woman wants to open with a man, not carry him. She wants partnership, not responsibility. When a man regulates himself, a woman relaxes. Her tests soften, her trust grows, her femininity flows more freely because she senses that the emotional container is secure. She no longer needs to check whether she will fall if she leans in. Attraction thrives where emotional stability exists. Control is not about domination, it is about mastery of self. And when a man demonstrates that mastery consistently, the tests stop turning into traps and start becoming gateways to deeper connection. Another fundamental way women test men during dating is through boundaries. Not the obvious ones, but the quiet, invisible lines that define who leads the interaction and who adjusts themselves to be accepted. Boundaries reveal a man's internal frame, whether he stands on his principles or bends to preserve approval. These tests often appear harmless. She may suggest plans that conflict with your priorities. She may push for more time than you can realistically give. She may question your decisions, your pace, or your standards. On the surface, it looks like normal interaction. Underneath, she is observing one thing. Do you abandon yourself to keep her, or do you remain aligned with your own structure? Modern men are often conditioned to believe flexibility equals attraction. So they cancel plans, shift values, ignore discomfort, and say yes when they mean no. Each time this happens, attraction quietly erodes, not because compromise is bad, but because self-betrayal signals weakness. When you violate your own boundaries, you teach her that your needs are negotiable and hers are not. A woman respects a man who respects himself first. When you calmly say, that doesn't work for me, without anger, explanation, or apology, something important happens. Her nervous system registers strength, not dominance, clarity. You are not trying to control her. You are simply not abandoning yourself. Boundary tests often escalate when a man lacks clarity. If you are unsure of what you stand for, she will keep pushing, not to punish you, but to locate the edge of your frame. If there is no edge, she feels unsafe. Chaos may feel exciting short term, but it never creates long-term respect. This is where many men confuse kindness with compliance. Kindness is choice. Compliance is fear. A man who agrees out of fear of loss loses respect even when he wins the moment. A man who chooses kindness from strength gains respect even when there is friction. One of the most common boundary tests shows up around time and availability. If you drop everything the moment she calls, you signal that your life revolves around her attention. If you honor your schedule and respond when aligned, you signal purpose. Purpose is magnetic. Neediness is not. Another test appears when she pushes emotional limits, venting excessively, seeking constant reassurance, or pulling you into emotional chaos early on. A grounded man listens without absorbing. He supports without rescuing. He cares without becoming consumed. This balance communicates leadership. Leadership in dating is not about controlling outcomes. It is about controlling self. When you maintain your boundaries, you create structure. Structure allows feminine energy to relax. When structure disappears, testing intensifies. She becomes restless, uncertain, and unconsciously dissatisfied. Importantly, setting boundaries does not mean becoming rigid or cold. It means being honest without hostility, clear without force, calm without withdrawal. A man who holds his line gently is far more attractive than a man who defends himself aggressively. When boundaries are tested and held consistently, something shifts. The relationship stabilizes, the tension becomes playful rather than anxious. Respect deepens. Desire becomes grounded instead of volatile. She no longer needs to test as often because the frame is proven. Men who fail these tests often blame women for losing interest. In reality, interest fades when a man disappears inside the relationship, when he becomes agreeable, reactive, and undefined. Boundaries prevent that erosion. Dating is not about proving worth. It is about demonstrating alignment. When you stay aligned with yourself, you give her permission to trust you. And when trust exists, attraction no longer needs to test every step forward. Hold your boundaries quietly, consistently, and without resentment, and watch how the dynamic transforms. Another powerful way women test men during dating is through emotional pressure. Not because they want drama, but because emotions reveal what words can hide. Under calm conditions, anyone can appear confident. Under emotional tension, only truth remains. This is why emotional pressure becomes a test of leadership maturity and inner stability. These tests often arrive unexpectedly. She may become distant for no clear reason. She may challenge you, emotionally express doubt, compare you to others, or bring up sensitive topics at moments when you least expect it. Sometimes she pulls away, sometimes she pushes. The content of the moment matters far less than your response to it. What she is observing is simply, do you remain centered, or do you emotionally collapse? Many modern men panic when emotional certainty disappears. Silence feels like rejection. Distance feels like danger. Uncertainty feels like loss. In response, they over-explain, over-text, chase reassurance, or attempt to fix emotions that are not theirs to fix. Each reaction communicates the same message: emotional dependence. A grounded man responds differently. He does not withdraw in fear, nor does he pursue in desperation. He remains present without becoming reactive. He listens without defending his ego. He acknowledges emotions without letting them control him. This calm presence is not learned through dating tactics. It comes from inner regulation. Women are biologically attuned to emotional strength. When emotions rise, they look for steadiness. If you become agitated, jealous, needy, or defensive, her nervous system registers instability. Not because she is cruel, but because instability signals risk. Attraction requires safety at an emotional level, even when intensity exists. One common emotional test shows up when she expresses dissatisfaction or criticism. A man who reacts with anger or self-pity fails instantly. A man who collapses into apology and validation seeking fails just as quickly. But a man who listens, considers, and responds calmly without losing his sense of self passes. Another test comes through uncertainty. She may say things like, "I'm not sure what I want right now," or "I don't know where this is going." These statements are not always requests for solutions. They are invitations to see how you handle ambiguity. Do you pressure her for clarity, or do you remain grounded in your direction regardless? Emotional pressure tests also reveal whether a man leads his emotions or is led by them. If her mood dictates your mood, your frame collapses. If her uncertainty creates panic, you become reactive. Leadership begins internally. A man who can regulate himself can guide the interaction naturally without force. This does not mean becoming emotionally cold or detached. Emotional availability matters, but availability without stability becomes burden. A woman wants to feel your presence, not manage your emotional state. Strength lies in balance, open, but not dependent, expressive, but not chaotic. Many men misunderstand emotional strength as emotional suppression that creates distance and resentment. True strength is emotional clarity. You feel emotions fully, but you do not act impulsively from them. You respond rather than react. This distinction is everything. When a man consistently passes emotional pressure tests, the dynamic shifts. Testing reduces, respect increases, trust deepens. She no longer needs to poke at uncertainty because certainty has already been demonstrated through behavior. Men who fail these tests often label women as confusing or emotionally unstable. In truth, the confusion reflects internal instability. Emotional pressure reveals what preparation hides. Dating is not about avoiding emotional moments. It is about becoming the kind of man who remains solid when they arrive. Emotional strength cannot be negotiated, explained, or faked. It is felt instantly. When you stop fearing emotional tension and start meeting it with calm presence, the tests transform into connection. Beyond boundaries and emotional pressure, one of the most decisive tests women apply is consistency, not intensity, not charm, not promises. Consistency, because consistency reveals character, and character determines whether attraction survives beyond the early excitement. In the beginning, many men perform well. They are focused, motivated, attentive, and confident. They say the right things, plan the right dates, and show up with energy. But consistency is not measured in days. It is measured in weeks, months, and moments when effort is no longer convenient. That is where most men fail. Women observe patterns more than statements. A man can say he is disciplined, ambitious, calm, or committed, but if his actions fluctuate, the words lose value. When behavior shifts depending on mood, stress, or perceived security, attraction quietly declines. Not dramatically, gradually. This is why inconsistency becomes a test. She watches how you behave when things are comfortable. Do you relax into complacency? Do you stop leading? Do you stop showing up fully once you feel you've won her interest? These moments reveal whether your confidence is internal or situational. Many men mistake early attraction for stability. They believe once interest is established, effort can decrease. But effort is not what sustains attraction. Integrity does. Integrity means your behavior aligns with your values regardless of circumstances. When that alignment breaks, respect erodes. Consistency also applies to emotional behavior. Are you calm one week and reactive the next, confident one moment and insecure the next, present when things are easy, distant when they require patience? Emotional inconsistency signals unresolved inner conflict. And unresolved conflict invites testing. Women test consistency subtly. They may change their energy to see if yours collapses. They may pull back slightly to observe whether you chase or remain grounded. They may introduce uncertainty to see if your direction wavers. These are not games, they are evaluations of reliability. A man who remains consistent without becoming rigid sends a powerful message: I am stable within myself. Stability creates trust. Trust allows attraction to deepen rather than constantly reset. When a woman trusts your consistency, she can relax. When she cannot, she stays alert, and alertness kills intimacy. Consistency does not mean being perfect. It means being predictable in your values, not your behavior. You can adapt without abandoning yourself. You can be flexible without losing direction. Inconsistency shows up when adaptation turns into self-erasure. One of the most common failures occurs when a man changes after receiving validation. Once affection is expressed, he relaxes his standards, stops pursuing growth, or becomes emotionally dependent. The version of him she was attracted to slowly disappears. The test is failed not because he changed, but because he stopped being himself. Consistency also applies to leadership. Do you make decisions the same way under pressure as you do in calm moments? Do you follow through on what you say? Do you maintain discipline in your life independent of the relationship? These details matter far more than romantic gestures. When a man is consistent, testing decreases. Not because she stops observing, but because observation confirms strength. When inconsistency appears, testing increases, not to sabotage, but to reassess. Men often feel frustrated by this process, believing they are being judged unfairly. But consistency is not about approval. It is about alignment. A man aligned with his values does not fear being tested because the test confirms who he already is. Attraction grows where consistency meets presence. Without it, even strong chemistry fades into uncertainty. Be consistent not to pass tests, but because self-respect leaves no other option. The deepest and most revealing test women apply is not about attraction, boundaries, emotions, or consistency alone. It is about whether you can walk away without collapsing. This test is rarely spoken, but it is always felt, and it determines whether respect exists at the core of the dynamic. At some point in dating, a moment arrives where a man must choose himself over attachment. It may come when standards are crossed, when effort becomes one-sided, when disrespect appears, or when alignment is lost. In that moment, many men hesitate. They tolerate behavior they shouldn't. They negotiate their dignity. They stay because they fear loss more than they value self-respect. This is where the final test begins. A woman observes what you do when staying costs you yourself. Do you abandon your values to preserve connection, or do you let go calmly when alignment disappears? This decision reveals your true internal power. A man who cannot walk away is not choosing, he is trapped, and trapped energy is never respected. Modern men are often told that persistence equals masculinity. In reality, discernment is strength. Knowing when to stay and when to leave requires clarity, not ego. Walking away does not mean being cold or punitive. It means being honest with yourself about what you will and will not accept. This test often emerges subtly. She may reduce effort. She may test disrespect through sarcasm, flakiness, or boundary violations. She may withdraw emotionally while expecting you to remain invested. What matters is not her behavior, but your response. A man who clings communicates scarcity. Scarcity kills attraction. A man who can calmly disengage communicates abundance, not of options, but of self-worth. He is not saying, I don't care. He is saying, I care enough about myself to not betray my standards. This is not about threatening to leave or using withdrawal as manipulation. Those are fear-based tactics. True strength is quiet. When you walk away without drama, explanation, or resentment, something profound happens. Respect either solidifies or the relationship ends in truth rather than illusion. Many men believe walking away means failure. In reality, staying in misalignment is the real failure. Relationships do not end because a man leaves. They end because authenticity disappears. When you abandon yourself to keep someone, the relationship becomes hollow long before it officially ends. Women are deeply attuned to whether a man is choosing them freely or clinging out of fear. One creates attraction, the other creates pressure. Pressure suffocates desire. The ability to walk away also protects you from becoming reactive. You no longer negotiate attraction. You no longer over-explain. You no longer chase clarity from someone who cannot provide it. You simply observe behavior and respond with action. When a man passes this test, something interesting happens. Either the dynamic corrects itself, or it ends cleanly. Both outcomes are wins. One preserves alignment. The other preserves dignity. This is why men who respect themselves are rarely disrespected for long. Their boundaries are not threats, they are realities. And reality does not need to be enforced aggressively. Walking away is not about punishment. It is about peace. It is about trusting that what is aligned will remain, and what is not must be released. This trust is felt immediately. It signals maturity, self-leadership, and inner security. Attraction is not maintained by holding tighter. It is maintained by standing firmer. When you can walk away without bitterness, without fear, and without losing yourself, the tests are complete because you no longer need to pass them.